It is a great honor and a privilege to introduce Irene Zisblatt. Your maiden name was Seigelstein. We're here in your beautiful home in Plantation in Florida. And Irene, you are an icon. You are just incredible. I saw you in a movie, The Last Days, many years ago, and you stood out. Your story was so profound and so amazing, and I feel so honored to be in your home and to be with you today. So I want to thank you so very much.
Thank you so much. I feel honored to have you interview me, because I have been interviewed by many, many people. But this is different. This is from the bottom of our heart, the bottom of our experience, the bottom of our families that we don't have. So this is different and this is special, and I really am appreciative, and I'm really honored to be in your presence and be interviewed by you.
It is so mutual, Irene.
We're gonna make it the best.
Absolutely. Irene, could you tell us a little bit where you were born and when?
I was born in a little resort town by the name of Polano. We were only 63 families in the whole town.
And this is in Hungary?
In Hungary. At that time, Hungary. It was different things. Before it was Czechoslovakia, then it was Hungary, then it was again Hungary. It was different times. I was born during the Hungarian, time. So I was born in 28 legally. I'm gonna use my legal thing. And so at that time it was Hungary.
And it was in 1930?
In 1928.
1928?
Yeah, and it was Hungary. And I was born at that time, so I was Hungarian. I spoke Hungarian. My first language was, of course, Yiddish, because we spoke Yiddish in the home. I mean, the parents and the grandparents spoke Yiddish. They didn't want us to learn Yiddish, but we learned anyway. So at that time it was Hungary. That's where I grew up. My father owned a spa that he devoted for people with muscular problems. We had water that was coming naturally from the ground, and he developed that water to a heating process. He built a heating machine to heat this water from the ground. He built a spa with bathtubs and rooms for people to come and sit in this water. It was a cure for muscular problems. So that was my father's business. He devoted his life to help everyone. He himself had polio when he was a child, so he had the feeling that he needs to heal. And so we had like a resort place in Hungarian. It was called the Fürdő. And this is where his spa was. There was different things in there. There were hotels and all kind of different kind of rooms, and a kosher restaurant and a non-kosher restaurant. And people would come from around the world for vacation with their families. The King of Hungary came one year with and he had a little girl. She was 10 years old. And I was, I think, 7 or 8 years old. So, and she loved to ride horses. And I owned my own horse, a Palomino, but she liked my horse. So we rode together in my father's place. We had the place where it had everything built in, like roads for horses and for bicycles and for, everything was in this in this one little place that was accommodating people from around the world. And the water came naturally from the ground. So, but my father used it for people, baths. So he built a machine to heat the water. And we had 10 rooms with bathtubs in there, and and he would fill the bathtubs, put on this machine that heated the water, and people would come and sit in the water and heal their body.
And can I ask, your home, was it a traditional home?
Yes, yeah, local?
No, traditional. Your parents were traditionally Jewish? They were...
Oh yeah, we were Orthodox Jews. We were only 63 families, and only a third was Jewish. So the Jewish people were Jewish. Then we had one religion. We were all Orthodox. And the non-Jewish people were Catholic, and they had one religion, only Catholic people. So, but we were together. We liked each other. We lived together with each other. We shared things.
And you had non-Jewish friends?
Yeah, but they were all our friends. They were non-Jewish, but they were all our friends. We had only one synagogue in town and one church. And the church was up on this, in the back.
This is a drawing that you made?
Yeah, this is the Jewish people. And the church was in the back, and our synagogue was over here. And there was an Orthodox temple.
And the school you went to?
And the school was here.
Was it a public school?
A public school.
With Jewish and non-Jewish children?
Yeah, Jewish and non-Jewish all mixed.
And you got on well with the non-Jewish children?
Yes, very well. We were little. We were, my friends were just non-Jewish, but they were my friends. We lived in harmony, all of us, because the non-Jewish people were less, poor. We had a little bit more because our parents had a business, and my grandfather had the biggest farm in town, so he shared everything that came off the farm, fruit and vegetables and everything. I used to come home from school and sit in the garden between the tomato plants and eat off of the plants. And we shared everything. On Christmas, I would go to the non-Jewish people's house, help them decorate the Christmas tree. On Hanukkah, they used to come. We had a built-in sukkah. And the entrance of the house was like a little, an entrance, like a foyer. But my father extended it bigger, and they opened up the roof, and that was our sukkah. So they used to come and help me decorate my sukkah. I would decorate their Christmas tree. My grandfather was growing Christmas trees on his farm, and on Christmas he would give every non-Jewish family a Christmas tree. And so, I went there and I helped them make these, because we didn't have decorations that we bought. We had to make them and put them on the Christmas tree. So we shared what we had together. I'll give you an example. One day I was eating the ball. I was eating up my house, and I was covering up the holes with my homework from school, so my mother shouldn't see it. And one day for Pesach, she was going to paint the house, and she took off the surface, all the house. And she screamed. She says, "We have rats in the house." And my father says, "We don't have no rats." "Yeah, we do. Look at the holes in the wall." And I was so guilty, I says, I am the rat. I am making the holes. Why are you making those? I says, I'm eating him. Oh my God. My mother she took me to the doctor. She told her that I'm eating the wall. So he examined me. He says, she has something lacking in her system that her system does not produce. So you have to replace it or she'll eat up your house. So but she's already eating the house, okay? So she went to all the non-Jewish people. The doctor told her that she has to have ham and bacon, because the ham and the bacon has the vitamin that my body does not produce. And so she says, but we're kosher, we don't use that stuff. He says, well, you'll have to use it. So she went to her friends, the non-Jews, and he says, when you kill the pig, please save me some bacon and ham. She has to have it. But when you bring it to the house, don't put it in the house, put it in the cellar, because I don't want my mother-in-law to know that we have ham. So we did, and the neighbors used to bring ham and bacon, put it in the cellar. But my grandmother used to can like fruit and vegetables, and her cellar was her, jars and jars of different kind of things. And there was the ham and the bacon. And my mother was a nervous wreck because she didn't want to embarrass, But my grandmother understood that I have to have it for medical purposes. You are allowed to have it. So she says you can bring it in the house. But she kept it on top of like a big closet. She kept it on top. But every day my mother would give me a little piece of bacon or ham with the first meal. And I stopped eating them all.
It's amazing.
Yes, and to the very day. Every now and then I have a craving. So I go in the store and I buy some ham and I make a ham sandwich and I'm okay. To the very day. It's.
And Irene, were you the only one out of your siblings that
Yes, my siblings, I had 5 more siblings. We were 6 together.
What were the names of your siblings?
I had 4 brothers and 1 sister. So I'm gonna go down the line. I was the oldest. My next was my brother Mengele. The next to him was a brother Meyer. Next to him was another brother David, and another brother, and that was my sister, and her name was Hinda. And after her was another brother, Eliezer, and these are my 5 siblings. And that's all we had. My sister and my youngest brother, Eliezer and Hinda, were born in the Holocaust. My sister was 4.5 when we went to Auschwitz, and 45. My last born brother was 2 years old. So the 2 last children were born in the Holocaust. And we went, but we left the home together, all of us.
So I just want to ask, Irene, in 1939, when the Germans invaded
invaded Hungary. The Germans did not invade Hungary until 1945, because our president, the Hungarian president, made a deal with Hitler.
Horthy.
That they will not take the Jews out of the country, because Hungary will use the Jews for their own purpose.
And in 44, that's when they started.
Yeah.
But
And
what do you remember? Things started getting not
well,
so good.
when the Hungarians made this deal with Hitler, they didn't touch us, but they put a lot of restrictions. They took away everything that we owned. My bicycle was taken away, because that's all the transportation that I had. And everything, see, when the Germans invaded in 44, and until then, we didn't see any Germans. But the Hungarian they were called Nyilas. They were the Nazis.
Cross,
yeah,
the Arrow Cross.
The Hungarian, the Arrow Cross, They were initiating all the things against us. So they took away our transportation. They took away our radios and communication, so we shouldn't know what's going on in the world. They stopped us. They threw the Jewish kids out of school. We were not allowed.
Do you remember going to school and they told you have to leave?
We came in one day. See, when the Germans took over, the Ukrainians came with them because they were working with the Germans. So the Germans gave all the power to the Ukrainians to deal with the Jews in our country. So they were our bosses. They were initiating. So the first thing they did, they got rid of all the teachers, the Hungarian teachers, and they put Ukrainian teachers in. So when we came to school, and the Ukrainians were already there, they wouldn't let us in. So they singled out all the Jewish kids, and the teacher was standing at the door with a big stick, and she pointed to the Jewish kids and out, 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 go home, go home.
How did you feel when that happened?
We were crying, we were screaming, this is our school. You are a stranger. Let us go in school. Where is our teacher? They got rid of our teachers. And we were all crying and and I said, we're going to the spa and we're gonna see my father and he will fix everything. He will come and he will restore everything. But he couldn't do it.
And how was your classmates, the non-Jewish children, when they told you that you had to
Oh
leave?
my God, we were all crying. We were all, this is our school. We want to go and they wouldn't let us in. They stood with like a ruler by the door and pushing us back. Out, go home, get out.
And
So all the Jewish kids, we all gathered together and we went up to the spa to see my father. I said, he will fix it. So we went there and we told our father what happened. We want to go back to school. They wouldn't let us in. And my father said, okay, everybody go home, be calm, and I'm going to go back there and I'm going to try and fix it. But he couldn't fix it. He went back to school and he couldn't fix it. So he came home and he ordered every family to make some sort of arrangements for your children to continue their education in whichever way we can. So some of us went 10 miles that way. Some of us stayed home and had a tutor. We were scattered all over, but we couldn't go back to school. And we never went back to school.
And what happened to your neighbors and the non-Jewish?
Yeah, we had non-Jewish neighbors, but they turned so quickly against us because they were brainwashed already. They were already trained not to help us. That we are bad people, we don't belong there, and that we whatever we own, we took away from them, so they made them hate us, you know, and they called us names and, you know, all that stuff. And I said, my grandfather was like, he was the mayor of the town. Everybody loved him, and he was helping everybody. He had the biggest farm in town. You see the last days, and you see that all belonged to my grandfather. And he was growing hay for everybody's horses and cows and all that stuff. The farm was producing all kind of vegetables and fruit. He shared. He let everybody come and pick what they need. But then we didn't have, because they restricted us from buying. We weren't allowed to buy in any store. Like, there were some things that we had to go to the store, like sugar and flour. No, we did our own flour. You know, we had a mill, and my grandfather, when they were taking like the grain, and they took them to the mill and they ground up, so we had flour. But we didn't have the ingredients like to make bread and stuff, because like that had to be bought in a store. And they wouldn't let us buy in any store. We weren't allowed to go in any store. So our parents and grandparents used their own knowledge to make bread and challah. My grandmother, my mother's mother, my father's parents lived next to us. We had a duplex house, so they lived with us. But my grandmother lived 5 miles away, and every Thursday night she used to come to our house. She used to teach me make challah and bread and everything. And I says, Grandma, I cannot be getting up 5 o'clock in the morning to learn how to make bread. She says, but you have to learn how to make it. When you grow up, you're going to have to take care of your family. I says, I'm going to have a maid. He says, that's fine, but you have to know to teach the maid. You know, I never forgot that. And I said, okay. So every Thursday night, she used to come to my house. She used to wake me up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and our kitchen was outside, a separate house. And the oven and everything was on there. So she used to teach me how to make the challah. Yeah, I know how to make challah. And bread and rolls and all the stuff. So I learned, you know. And I'm grateful today that I learned. I was screaming and yelling, I don't want to do this. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. I have to go to school. My school is 10 miles away. I have to walk all that time. I cannot spend time with the challah and the bread and all that. And my grandmother says, you're going to have to learn, because when you grow up, you're going to have to teach your maid.
Irene, you remember your shul that
Yes.
the neighbors, they
Yes.
threw rocks and...
Yeah, the shul, it was like in the middle of the town. It was a beautiful shul. And every Friday night, we used to carry the talit and the siddur for our parents and grandparents, because we didn't have an Erev. So the kids used to carry all the stuff on Friday, you know, after candlelight to the temple, and we left it there for the Shabbat. And then Saturday night, our parents and grandparents brought it home. So I carried the talit and siddur and everything in the temple. And then Saturday morning, everybody went to temple. And we had the bakery in town, so we made cholent and we put it in the bakery on the way to temple on Friday. And they put it in the oven. And Saturday before, you know, Shabbat was over, we stopped in the bakery and picked up our cholent and brought it home and had dinner. So it was everything together. We did everything together. Everybody, nobody was lacking anything. because whatever we had, we shared with all the Jewish people shared everything. And one day we went to pick up the cholent, and there was no cholent in the oven. And we had the biggest pot in the oven, and the pot wasn't there. So everybody sent us a plate of, of whatever they had. But my father said, somebody played a joke on us and they took our cholent away. I says, why would anybody do that? And I said, I was doing a lot of research finding the cholent, but we never found the cholent. Months after, my grandfather and I used to go in the forest to get mushrooms. And because my grandmother used to can all the mushrooms. So we used to go to pick mushrooms, and we found the pot from the cholent. The big pot, it was all cleaned. There was no food in it, but it was all cleaned up. I says, Grandpa, look, I found the cholent. He says, what's in it? I said, no, it's nothing, it's clean. They even cleaned the pot. Whoever ate the cholent cleaned the pot. He says, well, I'm so glad they cleaned the pot, because I don't think your grandmother would like a dirty pot. So we took home the pot, and we told our grandmother we got the pot. And she says, well, good, we're going to make more cholent on Friday. But we have to find out how the pot got there. Nobody knew. Nobody saw. Nobody knew anything. How? It turned out to be months later, they found out this was like 1939. We were not invaded by the Nazis. We were, but we didn't see any. But the Nazis were our own people. So we discovered that when the Germans made the deal with our president that they're not going to take the Jews out, the Ukrainians were there and they were ruling, and they put out all the orders against us. And they would not allow anything that we wanted to do. We had nothing. We had nothing. We weren't allowed to touch anything that belonged to us. They took everything away. And it was really, really bad, because my grandfather was worried. We were running out of food, and we couldn't replant, and it wasn't growing, and it was so bad. And then we heard rumors from different countries, like Czechoslovakia and the nearby countries, in Poland and Germany and Austria, and everybody was surrounding us. They were taking the Jews away. Where are they taking them? Nobody knew. But they never came back. First they took the men and the boys, and they said they're going to join the army because we need soldiers. But they weren't in the army. They were Jewish boys and men that were putting in forced labor camps, and they were treating already like the camps. And we didn't know where they were, if anybody is alive or not. We didn't even see a man. And the boys were too little to do anything, because they took the 16 and 17-year-olds into the army. And then it started. Every family is to stay in one place. They took away our bicycles, there was no transportation to go anywhere, so we couldn't go anywhere, we couldn't escape. And then the orders were, all families stay together and give up One day they wanted our jewelry. One day they wanted everything, everything. And so my mother decided the diamonds. Well, she had a bunch of diamonds. I don't know how many she had, but I heard her say to my father, they took away our transportation. They took away our right to be who we are. I'm not going to give her my jewelry. And my father said, but you have to. She says, I don't have to. I'm not giving it. So he says, okay. She took her jewelry, and we wear a lot of skirts in Hungary. And she gave me about 4 or 5 skirts. Wear them, put them on. Always wear these skirts. And in one of the skirts, she says, in your blue skirt, I put a bunch of diamonds in the hem of the skirt. So they told us, then they announced that everybody pack a suitcase to each person, not exceeding 25 kilo, and be ready to go to, they're going to take us to the vineyard in Tokaj to work during the war to make wine. And after the war, they'll bring us back home. So we were happy that we weren't going to leave our country and we're going to stay in it. So my mother took the diamonds that she gave me. This was part of it. And she put them in my hem. And she says, when they take us to the vineyards to work, and we work in separate places, and if you get hungry, you take these diamonds and buy bread. These diamonds were in my skirt. I only can find when and that's all. We all packed up, and my mother put the diamonds away. She didn't give it to them. And we went. We left our home. And they told us we're going to the vineyard, but when we got to the railroad station, we saw the cattle trains.
Can I ask you, Irene, when you left your home, did you see the reaction of your neighbors, of the non-Jewish neighbors?
Oh yeah, they were standing lined up on the street saying goodbye to us. Go out. We don't need our Jews in our country. It's time that you leave. And, they were bad. They were just yelling. And we were going to the railroad because we had a railroad station and we had a little train. And this train was taking us to the ghetto in Munkac. So we went to the train station, and as we were marching, they were yelling at us, get out of here, we don't need Jews in our country, and bad things, that our friends.
Was there any neighbor that showed compassion,
Not while we were leaving. And I said to my father, these are my friends. What happened to them? They hate me today. Yesterday, I gave them all kind of stuff for the Christmas tree, and today they hate me. Why? So my father says, don't ask. You're not going to get an answer. And just be quiet. Just don't say nothing, and just go. And on the way, I heard a baby cry in the meadow, because we were a lot of farms, And I stepped out of line, and I was going to follow the voice of the baby. And my father was holding me not to go. And the gendarme he was my father's friend. Now he is my father's enemy. And he saw me leave, and he took his rifle, and he pushed me into the line with the rifle. My friend, okay? He says, you can't go. Stay there. If you do it again, I'm going to shoot you. And I looked at my father. My father said, he just held my hand real tight. He says, you can't go anywhere. Stay here. I said, there is a baby crying out there. I got to go find the baby. She says, you can't find the baby. Stay here. So I didn't cry. I didn't find the baby. I didn't go. I stayed. And we got to the train station, and they put us on a train, and we took off. And we went to Munkac, to the big city. And in the big city was the ghetto. And the ghetto, I have a picture somewheres. We went to the ghetto. It was like, it's in the last days. You can see the gates of the ghetto. It was a brickyard factory. And it was called Shoyovich. There were two of them in Munkac, Shoyovich and Kalush. And they were both brick factories, but they were converted into ghettos. The two big, brick factories. And then they built another smaller ghetto in the city. They gated up a neighborhood because there was not room in the two, because the whole region came in the same place. And the ghetto was a ghetto. It was bad ghetto. When we got there was no shelter. We had no place to go. We had these bundles. It was raining. And there was no room to go there. Everything was full. So my father and my mother opened up their suitcases, and they took out like sheets and tablecloths, and they built a hut, and that was our new home. It was raining in, and all that, but that was our home. We put our suitcases on the ground, and we slept on it, and we lived on it.
How long were you in the ghetto?
Ghetto.
How long were you there?
I think we were in there about no more than a couple of months, because they were already taking people to Auschwitz, but we didn't know. They were lying to us the whole time. That's why they were able to take us wherever we went. And they said, you're gonna go to Tokai, you're gonna be in Tokai working in the
vineyards, like the vineyards.
Yeah, making wine until after the war. And then you're gonna go home, okay? So we were happy, but we didn't go to the vineyard, and we didn't make wine, but we went to Auschwitz.
But can I ask you, Irene, when you were in Munkac, did you have enough? What did you do for food?
They had like a soup kitchen, and every day if you had a thing, they filled up, the food was not food like you wanted, but it was food. That's all we had.
And in all this time,
and once a day they would give us the food, the soup. We called it soup. So we drank the soup once a day, and then the ghetto was surrounded by a river, and across the river was a military fort, and on the other side the military were with machine guns pointing at us. God forbid if you tried to escape or cross the river, they would shoot you.
Did anybody try to escape?
Oh yeah. A lot of people were trying to.
And did you hear shooting?
They were shooting people, and they fell in the water. Yeah, that's like the Danube. In the Danube, they did the same thing.
And Irene, in your town, I think there were 2 German motorbikes.
Yeah.
But did you see any Germans in your town?
Yeah, of course. The Germans and the non-Jews, they were by the gate of the ghetto, and yelling at us, very hateful stuff. We don't want you here. You get out of here. We want a clean city with no Jews. Okay? How do you feel? Okay?
We have. I just want to show. We have the only picture
Yeah.
that you have, which is. How old were you in this picture?
This is what I was then. This is what I looked.
How old were you in the picture?
I was almost 13.
Almost 13. And this is the only picture you have?
Yeah, we were leaving like in the fall, and in December I was going to be 13.
And this picture managed to...
Yeah, this is how I looked that I went to the camp.
And your parents sent this picture to family?
No, yeah. My parents sent this picture to their siblings in the United States in 1914. Not this one, you know, like this picture was, they came here in 1914 and they brought everything they send them things. So sometimes during the time after they were here, they send this picture, my grandparents, to their son, which was my father's brother, a picture of me, because I was the apple of their eyes. I was the oldest one. And I was the only one at that time. So that was their pride and joy. And this picture, when I came here, I found it in my uncle's house.
It must have been such
an amazing... Oh my God, I stole it. I took it and I put it in and my uncle says, "What happened to the picture?" I said, "It's my picture. I want a picture." He says, "Okay, you can have it."
And you don't have pictures of your parents?
Yeah, no.
Your siblings?
I went back twice into my country, and I searched every corner of my past. I could not find. I just wanted a piece of paper with my father's name on it, just to show that he existed. Nothing. They burned everything. They didn't want any trace of us. So, I never found anything. I went back twice after the war, and I couldn't find anything, but nobody else did either. We went to the city hall, we went to the police station, we went to all available buildings that were just hanging in there to find a piece of paper that had our parents' name on it. Nothing. They burned everything. But the gardens, the vegetables were growing everywhere. And I'll never forget, Steven Spielberg was one of the directors that was doing the movie. And he says, "These string beans are so beautiful. Can we get some?" I says, "If you want to climb up and pick them, you can go pick them." I said, "They belong to my grandfather. Nobody else stopped. You take as many as you want." They were picking string beans, all kind of vegetables. It was still growing, everything, you know. And the cows were they were in the stable. And the horses, they had little babies. Everything was there, but it wasn't ours.
And the synagogue, did that still remain?
Yeah.
It's still there, the synagogue?
Yeah. And the Ukrainians are living in my house, in all the Jewish houses, and they wouldn't let me in. I says, "I'm not going to take it. It's ours. We bought it. We paid for it." I says, "I understand." I says, "I'm not going to take anything. I just want to show my child where I grew up." They wouldn't let me in. They wouldn't let me in the house. I wanted to show her the holes in the wall. No, but I stood outside in the sukkah, you know, and I there was a button on the wall that the roof opened up, and I stood there and I pushed the button and I opened up the roof. I says, "I'm going to make sukkah today." Even they don't let me. I'm going to be in the sukkah. But it was very sad because walking up the street, they were standing behind their fences and talking to us in their language. Of course, they were talking Russian because Russia was, and but there was one family was close where we lived, and they remembered my father and my grandfather, and they remembered me. And I brought them, I knew they were very poor, the non-Jewish people. So I bought for the women like babushkas, and for the men I bought ties to go to church, on Sunday. And they gave me like what they grew in the garden, food, So they gave me like cucumbers and stuff like that, It was very nice because at least they showed that they didn't forget us. So some of them remained maybe civil, but it was no help to us because they altered every Jewish house in town. So if anybody comes back, we shouldn't recognize it. But they wouldn't give it back to us anyway. And to the very day we're fighting with the government, Okay, if they don't want to give us back the houses, let them pay for it.
Compensation.
Yeah. It's not happening. Why? Because of this verkackte president, the Jewish guy in Ukraine. He hasn't done anything for the Jews or anybody that was victimized, during the time. What kind of a Jew is he? I mean, where was he? He wasn't in the Holocaust. He doesn't know anything about the Holocaust. He doesn't do anything to repair or to help us, not to feel that we lost everything, because we lost everything. And he's not helping us. In all these years, we are supporting them. I am livid about that. I says, they came in with the Germans to my little town of 30% Jews, okay? Every single morning they would search the streets for little kids, and they would take them and throw them in mass graves. They wouldn't even shoot them. They buried them alive.
This was the Ukrainians?
The Ukrainians, yeah, during the German regime, 45, 44, 45.
Irene, I think you mentioned that there were only 2 German motorbikes.
Where?
In the whole town, 2 German motorbikes in your town.
Yeah.
But there weren't many Germans in your town.
No, there was only 30% of the Jews that lived in the whole town. Okay? So how many were there? Each family had 3, 4, or 5, children. So there was a lot of children. But they were gathering the children every morning and taking them, they had a mass grave, and they threw them into the grave and buried them alive. Okay, my grandfather had this big farm, and I slept in one of those bins that he built for when a cow has a baby, they put it in a bin. When a horse has a baby, they build a bin for them. My grandfather built these bins to hide us. I slept in one of those bins more than in my own bed, because every morning they would look for people like me. So my father would lock the barn, and we were in there, so they couldn't find us. But every baby that was out there was taken and thrown in the bin. They didn't even shoot them. They buried them alive. Those little babies, they didn't even know what was happening. They never did anything wrong, and they died such a cruel, cruel death by people like Ukraine.
I want to ask you, Irene, when you were in Munkash, and they said now they took you when they deported you to Auschwitz, Do you remember the day that they did the deportation, when you had to leave to the
Yeah,
trains?
we had to be in the ghetto until they were building the trains somewhere else, because they took all the men and the boys from the ghetto somewheres, and they were helping to build the train.
Did they take your father as well?
Yeah. And my father he wasn't there long, because he, you know, the spa that my father owned, when the Germans took over, he traded the spa with a non-Jewish man of Munkach that owned a hotel in Munkach. He gave him the spa, and they traded, and he had the hotel in Munkach. So when we were taken to the ghetto, my father was in the hotel, and the family was in the ghetto. But he was allowed to be in the hotel because he owned it. And until the Germans took it away, he was allowed to be in the hotel. So he was there, and his cousin, my father's cousin, he lived in Munkach in the city. He was the richest man in Munkach. He was, they called him a Shargo Botosh, a yellow store, you know, a haberdasher store. He was the richest person on the Corso, on the thing. And he built the little ghetto in Munkach because there was not enough room in the big ghettos, like in the two ghettos already. It was too many people. So they made a deal, my father and his first cousin, and his name was Fischl, and he says, when we are ready to leave, you wait for me, and I'll come with my family where you are in the ghetto, and we'll go wherever we're going to go together. So when the cattle cranes came in the ghetto, and we were on the train, my father was looking out the window looking for his cousin. And a man in the wagon said, "What are you hanging out the window?" He says, "Because my cousin is supposed to come, and we were going to go together wherever we were going." And he says, "Don't look for your cousin. They killed him and his family. And they're an example in the middle of town to tell the people not to commit sabotage, because it's going to happen to them too." I said, what's he talking about? My father says, "I don't think he's talking about my cousin." But he was crying. I said, "So why are you crying?" He says, "Well, in case it's true, I don't know." "What's true? What do you think is true?" He says, "Well, he tells me they killed the whole family." "Why?" His oldest son, my father's cousin, I used to go there for holidays all the time. I mean, we were all so close. And every time, he had 5 children. His oldest son was 25 years old, and he was gorgeous. And when the Nazis came in, they appointed him Judenrat. So he became a Judenrat. He didn't know what it meant, but he was carrying out their orders. And they told him that he needs to bring 4,000 children to the railroad station because they're going to send them to a camp. And he thought they were going to go into a camp, but they were going to Auschwitz, okay? After he found out what they're doing with the people that he is producing for them, he went home and he killed himself. He didn't want to do it again. He didn't want to give them any more people. So my uncle, my cousin, my father, his father, they had 5 children. So now they had 4. They buried him, and in Europe, when you are rich and you have help So you have people working for you. They have to live on your premises. He had a man living on his premise that was making, as a hobby, French provincial furniture. And he was selling it, you know, on his own. He wasn't Jewish, but he was working for my cousin. And he went home after his son killed himself. He said, you put all the furniture on your truck, put us underneath, and take us to Budapest. So the man took all the furniture, loaded up the truck, put all the people underneath, and left for Budapest, because they knew that if they find out that he killed himself, they're going to punish the whole family. So they left for Budapest, and when they got to Budapest, they went to the safe houses where Wallenberg was, you know, taking care of them. So they lived in the safe houses. We didn't know that. We were waiting in the train for them. And then when the man told us that they're dead, don't wait for them, we went. You know, we went on the train. So we knew that they were dead because the man told us. The boy killed himself, and when they found out that the boy doesn't want to do their dirty work, they killed the whole family. So we knew we have no family. But they were in Budapest, and they were safe, and they were protected by Wallenberg. But they weren't so protected. In Budapest, this family, they were in the safe houses. But the boy that was my age, we were very close, he was very curious, and he says, I'm going to explore Budapest. So he left the safe houses and he went to explore. There was a train going to Auschwitz, and they caught him and they put him on a train. And his sister went to look for him. The sister that was my age, we were like very close. She saw him on the train. And so she ran and she grabbed them pulled them off the train. The assessment that was guarding the train went over to her, and he says, Bujika, I have been in love with you ever since high school. If you come with me, I will let your brother go back to the safe houses. She says, okay. To save his brother. So she went with him, and the brother went back to the parents, and we don't know what happened after that. We didn't know anything what happened until my movie was being done. In 1998, I was going to Budapest with the crew of the movie to take, to do the movie in my hometown and in Budapest. When we got to Budapest, I said, Steven Spielberg, one of his aides, says, I want you to come with me to a restaurant. You're going to meet somebody. One of the daughters of that family was waiting for me in the restaurant. She knew I was coming. And I says, oh my God. She looked at me. I didn't see these people, all this time. I didn't know whether they were alive. And there was Berger. I says, are you a Seigelstein? Yeah. Are you the little girl with the pink coat that used to come visit us? Yeah. My God. I says, are you all alive? Yeah. How did it happen? She says, I'll tell you another time. Come on, let's feed you. So we went in the restaurant, and we were only eating soup. I said, okay, soup is okay. And she told me all about what happened. We did not get killed. We escaped, and we were the whole time protected by Wallenberg. But Berger went with the Nazi. There was a Nazi boy. She went to school with him, and he was in love with her through the whole time. But he wanted her to go with him, so she went with him to save her brother. So I said, so is she going to come back? We don't know. But meanwhile, if she is safe, we're going to let it go. So they let it go. The parents, meanwhile, died. So they were buried in the temple in Budapest, where Tony Curtis has a tree. Yeah, they are buried under that tree. They died in the ghetto. And two of their siblings moved to Debrecen, so they lived in Debrecen, which is not too far from Budapest. One of the girls had a daughter, and she was a lawyer, so she was nearby in Budapest, working at her job as a lawyer. And the daughter-in-law and the boy that was exploring, he and his wife, they were my friends, my age. They were planning to leave Budapest, but they were waiting until the revolution, because the Russians wouldn't let anybody out. So when the revolution started, they left. The boy and his wife and two of his daughters and the girl that went with the Nazi, she had a boy, and the boy is now in Los Angeles, but we don't tell him who he is. He don't know anything what happened, what his mother did. But when he found me, and that was just a couple of years ago, because I didn't know who was alive of that part, he just wanted me. He says, "You're my only connection to my mother. Please tell me everything about her." And I told him everything. I grew up with her, everything about her except that she left with the Nazi. So we don't know whether he knows who he is, because after the war, his father's friend came with a Jewish boy and said to his mother, the Nazi's boy's mother that I knew of, she said, "You married him now." And she married this Jewish boy, and this boy was a Jewish family. And I said, "So what happened to the Nazis?" They just left them in Budapest, and they took off. She gave him a choice. She says, "My child and I are leaving this country. If you want to come with us, you can come. If you don't want to come with us, you stay here. But I am filing divorce papers, and we're no longer together, but I'm taking this child with me." So I don't know whether that's his child or whose. We don't say nothing. We don't want him to know. And he went to Harvard. He graduated as a doctor. He is now 80-some-odd years old, retired. He lives in Los Angeles, in the most expensive part of Los Angeles. And he devotes his time. He is retired. He is now 70-some-odd years old. And he devotes his time to do research for medical purposes, free of charge.
Amazing.
And that, I'm very proud of him. And his cousin, which is his mother's brother's daughter lives here in Boca, and I am in touch with her. And so we compared, and she knows about him. And I said, "Please don't tell him. please don't tell him. He doesn't know, and he's 70 some odd years old. He does everything for the Jewish people and others. Let him live his life and not know what happened. So that's where we are. We are together. We are in touch with each other. We share our knowledge. Every now and then he calls me and he tells me more about my mother. And he just recently went back to Munkach because he was never there. And he wanted to see where his mother grew up and where they lived, and everything is there. And he saw everything, and he came back and he told me where he was and what he did. And he says,
his mother wouldn't tell him?
No. Nobody told him. I told everybody, please don't tell him. Don't tell him. Let him be free. Let him be free of what happened. He will consider himself dirty or whatever. His life will not be the same.
So right.
Please don't tell him. He's 75, whatever he has, let him live as a Jewish person that does good for the world. Yeah.
I mean, I have to ask you, and I know it's difficult, when you left Munkach on those cattle cars, the cattle trucks, you remember leaving? You remember going?
Oh yeah, everything. I remember everything.
The 5-day journey?
Oh yeah, the journey from the ghetto, from where? To Auschwitz. From the ghetto to Auschwitz.
And there was just one pail, and they didn't give you food for the 5 days?
They locked when we got to the cattle car, they put 100 people in each cattle car in an empty pail with no water in it. So in the cattle car, I can tell you, the older people, they wanted to die. So they were praying to die. The young people were crying. They were cold and hungry. There was no water, there was no bathroom. The doors were locked. My father was standing by a window that was half closed to see through the crack which way we are going, because they told us we were going to Tokai, but we didn't know whether we are or not. And he saw through the crack that we are not going to Tokai, because he was traveling, so he knew the country. And he says, we just left our country and we are in Poland. And when he said Poland, I was like, oh my God, I know what happened in Poland. I heard rumors what they were doing in Poland, and now we're there. So what are they going to do with us? They're not gonna give us a medal. They're going to kill us. How are they going to kill us? We didn't know about the gas chambers. When the train stopped, we were in Auschwitz and in Birkenau, and the train was so big that from Auschwitz to Birkenau, the train was still the train, because the remains of all the Jews in Hungary were on that train.
And how you couldn't drink or eat for all that time?
We were locked up still. The doors didn't open. But when the train stopped, through the cracks, we were trying to see where we are. I saw flames in the sky. So I thought maybe there is a fire, or there is farms or something. I didn't know what it was. And then when the train was standing, there was a smell, strange smell. And we didn't know what it was, but it turned out to be the human flesh from the gas chambers. But we didn't know. We didn't know nothing about what, but we just knew something is burning and it smells bad. Okay. When they opened the door, then we saw where it was coming from. but we didn't know what it was. So, and they shoved and they pushed and they threw off of the train. They wanted us out of there as fast as they could. And there was a selection immediately. As soon as the people come off the train, there was a separation, the men, the women. The children with the women, and the small boys with the men. So the men were there, and the women were there, and the Nazis were in the middle. And the factories with the flames were one on this side, one on this side, one everywhere. And the smell was unbelievable. And so there was no questions. You were not allowed to open your mouth. You don't know what this is. So the men with the striped jackets, the Sonderkommando, they were working in the station, and they had orders. They had orders to take, to put certain amount of, certain age people here, here, here. Children here, there. And that was their job. So a man in a striped jacket, a Sonderkommando man. My mother gave me my 2-year-old brother to hold. And she says, and take your sister's hand and hold it really tight so she doesn't get lost, because it was chaos. And so I was holding my sister and my mother. So then my mother came. She took my brother from my arms. She says, hold her really tight so she doesn't get lost, A striped man boy came over to my mother and said, give me your child. I'll carry your child. She says, no, I'll carry my own child. She wouldn't give him the child. What he wanted to do is take the child away from her so she can be saved. Because with the child, she would go to the gas chamber. But without the child, she might live. And he didn't want to tell her that, she couldn't, but that's what he was trying to do, save her. But she wouldn't give him the child, so she went with the child. Mengele was there doing the selection. He wanted my mother because she had the eyes that he wanted to create. And he said to my, put the child down and go to the right. And my mother, so brave, looked back at him and said, my children will go with me. And she wouldn't put the child down. So he said, okay, go with the child. He pushed her on the truck with the child. I was with my little sister holding her hand. He came over to me and with his stick hit my hand between my sister, pushed her to my mother, and pushed me in the opposite direction. I says, please let me go with my family. I want to go with my family. He wouldn't let me go. He pushed me in the opposite direction. And here I was among a bunch of people I never saw before in my life, and my family is over there. And they won't let me go. And I'm crying, and I'm calling my mother, come here, come here. My mother says, don't cry, I will come for you later. That was the last time I heard my mother's voice. And she went with the little children. And they went to the gas chamber.
All the siblings?
All of them. And I saw them. I saw my father and the boys and my mother and the two children. They were going down the ramp. I didn't know at the time what it was, but when I saw the flames, I knew it was the gas chamber. But I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to say, I saw my family go to the gas chamber. But that's what it really was. But I was waiting for my mother to come for me, because she said, "Don't cry, I will come for you later." The end of the day, I was already processed into the camp, into a barrack, into a bunk, taking my clothes away, given this one piece of clothes, given a pair of wooden shoes that did not fit, so I didn't have any shoes. I was barefoot. I was already, they shaved my hair. I had no hair. I had nothing.
And you remember them shaving? You remember them?
Oh yeah, they do with the machine. You know, a little, a shearing thing. You know, they just 1, 2, 3, you're at no hair. And the pile was safe. They were making mattresses from the hair to send to the soldiers in the war of our hair. And we had nothing. Okay?
And the diamonds?
Yeah.
The diamonds
The diamonds were in the skirt. But I had no skirt. Where is my skirt? So I went back to the place where they were ordering us to get undressed. I found the skirt. So I took them out of the pile. That's my pile. And I opened up like I tore open the bottom, and I just, whatever was there. I don't know how many they were there, but I only found 4. These 4, and these 4, I don't know how many they were. I didn't have time to look for it because they were, with the machine guns. But I took them and I was holding them in my hand. And I says, where am I going to hide them? I have no clothes. I have no place to put them. How am I going to save them? My mother told me I have to buy bread. How am I going to buy bread? I don't know where to hide them. They're going to take them away. Put them in. So I figured the only place I have is my mouth. I put it in my mouth, under my tongue. Then I saw they were opening up people's mouth and taking gold teeth. They pull out their teeth and cavities. And I says, oh my God, my mother's diamonds are in my mouth. They're going to open my mouth. They're going to find the diamonds. They're going to take them out. They're going to take them away, and they're going to shoot me for not putting them in the box. So I'm looking and I'm thinking, I'm trying to hide them somewhere on my body. I cannot find a place to hide them. I swallowed them. I swallowed them. I says, okay, now I felt so good. I says, now I'm safe. They can't find it. They can't punish me. It's okay. Wherever they are, they're going to be there forever because I'm not going to try and find them again. But I had to, And so I went through the next process. They opened my mouth. I had no gold teeth in my mouth, so they didn't pull anything. And they pushed me further, and on the wall was this big picture, a mirror, and they ordered us to look at ourselves. When I saw myself, I didn't recognize myself. I was stripped of everything. I looked like it wasn't me. And I had to look at that mirror. And then we left the mirror, we went into the camp. And they lined us up in rows of 5, and this was Birkenau. And Birkenau, we stayed in line in rows of 5 until all the people came out, and we all lined up, and then they brought us to the camp. And I was in Lager C in Birkenau. And in Lager C, they put me in a barrack where we were like, I don't know how many hundreds of people in each barrack, but we were 10 in each bunk. And the 3-story bunks, we were 5 this way and 5 this way. And this was our new home. At the end of the day, when my mother didn't come for me, and she said she would, I went to look for her because I felt with no shoes, with one little dress till here, with no hair, she won't recognize me. She won't find me. So I went to look for her. And I went to the gate to get out, to go see where my mother is. And the blokhova, that was, you know, she had her little office by the gate, and, you know, her luxury room. And she says, she shook me by the, where are you going? I says, my mother said she's going to come for me. I'm going to look for my mother because I don't know whether she'll find me. He says, your mother, she's pointing to the fire. Your mother is just about now coming out of that chimney. And if you're not going back to your bunk, all of you will go there today. I says, oh my God, what is she talking about? Why is she saying that about my mother? My mother was only 32 years old, and she was beautiful, and she never did anything wrong. Why would anybody do this to her? But I had no answers to my question. So I went back to my bunk, and I climbed up to go to sleep and to do what she says because I didn't want anybody else to get hurt. And I heard children crying from the outside. So sad. And, you know, I was on the 3rd bunk, so I was able to look out. And I had no windows, but I had this opening. And I looked out and I saw trucks coming down the road. And 2 little children, this little, fell out of the truck. And the assessment picked them up from the street and threw them. There was blood everywhere. Those little children that had no life, they had no future, they didn't know what was happening. They will never smile again. And here I am screaming, and the girl next to me put her hand on my mouth. She says, please, you're not allowed to scream because the punishment is death. I says, okay. So I stopped screaming. And I says, why are they doing that? She says, don't ask why, there is no answer. Just make sure that you're okay. Just don't worry about anything else that's going on around me. It's not going to help you. They're not going to come to your rescue. They're not going to come do nothing for you. Just be quiet and just pull into yourself and just stay there, because the punishment is death. And I went to sleep, hoping that when I wake up in the morning, this madness will be gone. But nothing was gone. Everything was a beginning. So roll call was before daylight. So must have been about 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. They wake us up, put us outside. We had to line up 5 in a row, each barrack in between the barracks, you know. And then the fun began. They were coming in, Mengele and other people with him, and they had like, like they had, things in their hand, and they were counting, yeah.
Batons, maybe?
Yeah, and they were counting. And all of a sudden they were like stopping and touching somebody and calling the blockova, and she would put down the number. And they came to me and Sapka. Sapka was in my row, but I didn't know Sapka. We had just met. She was already in my bunk, but I didn't know. So she was next to me, and the blockova came over, and she took my number and she put it in her book, and then she took Sapka's number from her, put it in her book, and they went on. The end of the day, she came into the block. She says, you and you, come on. She took us into her office, and Mengele was there. I have the chills just to you know. And I wasn't sure who he is and what he does. But he looked at us and he goes, yeah, he made a sign that he did a good choice. And Sapka was already close to me, holding my hand. And they left, you know, Mengele and his henchmen, they left. And the blockova said to me and Sapka, you stay here and I will come in a little while and I will take you to Auschwitz. Auschwitz at that time, Birkenau was Auschwitz. There was no Birkenau. Everything was Auschwitz. 40 miles long, 60 miles wide, Auschwitz. So they said, we will go to Auschwitz to a different barrack. Okay. We weren't allowed to ask or say or just be quiet. So they left, and the blockova assigned other people, and they came and they took me and Sapka, and we walked to the other side of the Auschwitz. And when we got there, we joined 3 other people. So now we were 5. So the 5 of us were taken, and they were put another person to take us, and they took us down in one of the barracks in Auschwitz that we go today. We go there. Next to the barrack 10, you know, barrack 10 is where they were castrating the women. Barrack 10 was a castration unit, a barrack, where Mengele was castrating women there. And next to it was this barrack where we were taking. In between these barracks, there is a wall. That's the hanging wall. They were hanging people on that wall, yeah. And this is a whole like a park, and a barrack here, a barrack there, and we were in this barrack, and in this barrack the windows were all closed up, and a man came out of there, and he was smiling, and he wore a suit, and he was a young man, and a Jewish man, because like there was no other people, there was all Jews. And I said to Sapka, why is he smiling? What's in that barrack that he just came out of? She says, I don't know, but we can ask him. I says, ask him. So she asked him, I says, what do you do inside that barrack? He says, we're making money. I says, you do what? We are making money. What kind of money? We are making English pounds. Why? Nobody needs money here. Yeah, they need money there. I says, what are you really doing there? He says, we are printing English pounds. Why? To overflood the economy. And when we overflood the economy in England, we will go to America, and we will overflood the money in America, and we will print dollars. I says, he's crazy. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He says, maybe he does. And maybe we will find out someday. But right now, let's just listen to him. And I says, and what do you do? And he says, I do that. I print a lot of money. I said, so you'll be very rich when you leave here, right? Yeah, sort of. Okay, so we just didn't pay any attention. We didn't think it was the truth, but it was. And so, okay, then Mengele, the three people out of the 5 that we came out from we were in this dungeon, I don't know how long. But while we were in there, we were standing in water, and Sapka was saying to us, bend down and drink the water. So I bent down and I drink the water. When I got up, she bent down. I says, why are you going like, it says, because we can't all go down together because there's not enough room. So we each have to do it separate. And I don't know how long we're going to be here. We might be here too long. We will be thirsty. Let's drink the water before we have to go to the bathroom, because we're going to have to go to the bathroom in the water. So we all drank the water, and we went to the bathroom anyway because we were there too long. And so we drank the same water after. But when we came out, we were waiting for Mengele to come and examine our eyes. We didn't know why we were there. We just knew that they put injections in our eyes and they put us down there. But what happened, we didn't know. When he came to examine us, 3 out of the 5 went blind. So they were taken away and we never saw them again. So I don't know whether they took him to the gas chamber, or I don't know what happened to them. But Sapka and I were taken back to our camp. And when we got to our barrack, the Blokova said to us, what color was your eyes when you went, with Mengele? So I said, Sapka said, they were green. So she looked, she says, well, they're still green. I says, well, why wouldn't they be? She says, well, because Mengele was supposed to change them to blue, to make them blue. But I guess he didn't change them. So he says, okay, you stay here until he comes and dismisses you. So he came and he looked at our eyes and let us go back into the barrack. But from that day on, he would choose her and me every couple of days for different experiments in the same barrack. But he couldn't change the color of our eyes. They were still green and they still are today. And I have 2 holes in my eyes in each corner. Only a doctor noticed it. When I had cataracts, they thought it was cataracts, but it was actually the closure of my eyes from his medicine that he put. And the doctor that did, he says, you have a very strange cataract. And I didn't tell him. He was a 30-year-old Italian doctor. He knew nothing about the Holocaust. I didn't want to tell him that Mengele was trying to change the color of my eyes. So I says, well, what's in my eyes? He says, you got 2 holes in your eyes. Why do you have 2 holes in your eyes? So I had to tell him. I says, listen, I'm a Holocaust survivor. I was Mengele's guinea pig, and he put holes in my eyes to put injections in those holes to change the color of my eyes. The holes are still there. They never closed up. But they don't hurt. And he cleared the The cataract that he thought was a cataract was not a cataract. It was the medicine that grew over like a cover over my eyes and I couldn't see. But he removed like the whatever that was and I can see. I never wear any glasses. I don't have any problem. They removed the so-called cataract, and I only wear glasses when I read with something close, you know. But I have no trouble with my eyes, and they're clean, they're clear. But he is dead, thank God, and he will never touch me again, and or anybody else. And hopefully that nobody ever goes through that again, because...
And Irene, I think he did something on your hand that you had...
yeah,
number.
My number?
Do you still have the number?
No, I don't have. See, he removed that too. Why do you think he removed my number? The SS were tattooed with the same ink under their arm, SS. And that was their initiation to become SS. So they had it under their left arm. The same ink that we had the number. When the Russians were approaching Auschwitz, he wanted to remove this SS signal from there so they should not be charged as perpetrators. So we were the guinea pigs because they had no, technology at that time to remove tattoos. So we were taking here, see that white line here? That's where my number was.
Do you remember then your number?
Yeah, look at that. It's like 80 years and I still have a scar.
And Irene, you remember what your number was?
Oh yeah, it's in my book. It's 9737. It's in my book. Yeah, the 97397 was my number. And he removed it. And he cut my arm open.
Without anesthetic?
Without anesthetic, oh no. We never even heard of anesthetics. I fainted because I was glad because I didn't feel anything when I fainted. He opened my arms. He took out, see, look at that. Part of it is still, the line where he cut me open. He cut me from here to here. And he pulled out all the excess. And then after that, I was supposed to go to gas chamber because he wasn't going to leave any evidence. But the nurse was, she was a partisan, and she was working with him. But he didn't know who she was. She was there secretly, and she was taking care of us, but we didn't know either. And she took us to the tuberculosis room, and she put us in there while he was there until he left. And then she took us out and put us in a barrack. But she warned us, don't tell anybody what happened here today, because if he finds out that you're still alive, you're gonna, I was supposed to be dead. But she took us out and she put us in a barrack where we were never before. And she says, tomorrow there is a transport going, I don't know where, but just go in there. And the next day the barrack was taken and we were in there, Sabka, and we went to the gas chamber actually. We were selected, 13,000 of us, to go to the gas chamber to be killed. So we went to the gas chamber, but at the gas chamber, a Sonderkommando boy came to do his job. I was thrown out of the gas chamber because it's another book. In the gas chamber, when we were there, we were 1,300 people. And the gas chamber was so small, we knew that there is never going to be 1,300 people put in there. It was too small. So we started to push back out. And I was pushed back to the door. And when I got to the door, I put my nails into the wall, and I was hanging onto the wall. And the assessment guarding the door, when the people brought the Cyclone B to the opening, and they were ordering him to close the door so they can throw the Cyclone B into the gas chamber, he couldn't close the door because I was in the door. But he had to obey at any cost. So he threw me out, and he closed the door, and he ran. They threw the gas in, and I ran out, and I was under the roof of the gas chamber hiding, and I heard the screams from inside, but they didn't last too long. They died so quickly because that gas was such a quick killer. And I had a little closure knowing that they didn't suffer too long. And then the Sonderkommando came to remove the bodies, and he found me underneath the roof. He pulled me out. I was naked because in the gas chamber they have to strip, you know. He pulled me out, and he took off his jacket, and he covered my naked body. He says, "Stay, I'll be right back." I thought I was hallucinating, but he did come back. He says, "I will take you out of here. I will take you across. Number 3 gas chamber is the only one has a railroad that's coming up to the gas chamber. And there is a train on that railroad, and people are already in there going to a labor camp. I'm going to try and put you on that train." I said, "What is your name? I know you're from my country. Where are you from?" He says, "It doesn't matter. I only have 3 more days to live. So if you make it, live a little for me too." See, the Sonderkommando were only lasting 3-4 months, and after that they would kill all of them, select new ones. He only had 3 more days to live, and then they were going to destroy. So he says, "If you make it, live a little for me too." I says, "Get out of here. You're going to be okay." "No," he says, "I'm not going to be okay. I'm going to be dead. And if you're going to be alive, live for all of us, for all of us." And I do every day. So I looked for him after the war. He put me on that train, and I left Birkenau and Auschwitz and the death camps and all of the evil behind me. And I went to a labor camp. And the train took me to a subsidiary camp near Neuengamme in Germany. And I worked in an ammunition factory there until after the war. But Sapka was there. I thought she was dead, and she thought I was dead. But they sent her to that place to work. So I met her the next day. We had a reunion. So we were together, and we didn't care where we're going or what's going to happen. We just knew that we're going to be together no matter where it takes us. And we did. We worked in this factory. Then we went on a death march. We were on a death march from April until June. And no food, no lodgings, no nothing. And in June we were bombed. So the SS were bombed, and we were in a transport. They were taking us somewhere to shoot us, but Sapka and I escaped from that transport. We were in the mountains, and there was forest on each side. It was close to the border of it was near, Pilsen was there, and the Czech border was there. and we escaped just 17 kilometers before the Czech border. Sapka and I just stayed, and we let the transport go because Sapka was so smart. She did so much research. She says, Irene, today we are going to escape. I said, Sapka, they're going to shoot us. She says, they can't shoot us because they have no ammunition. I says, what do you mean? They bombed their stuff. They have no ammunition. I says, they're going to see us. They have no flashlight. It was all on the truck. They bombed the truck. They're not going to see us. Look, God created this dark night. They can't see us. We're going to run. I says, okay. So we ran. We turned around and we went the opposite direction. And we came in an abandoned farm. And she always said, we have to find some real food so we can go to heaven. So I found this farm and I'm digging in the ground. She says, what you doing? I said, I'm looking for the food that's going to take us to heaven. She says, in this mud? I said, Sapka, this is not mud, this is a farm. There has to be food in this. I found a potato. She says, this is going to take us to heaven. So we shared the potato, and we found running water, clean water. We drank a lot of water, and Sapka says, I think we ought to stay here and rest. So we had a half a blanket left because the other half used to tear off pieces and wrap up our feet because we had no shoes. So we had a half a blanket left. So we were so little, each one of us weighed maybe 30 pounds. So we wrapped ourselves up in the blanket and we lay down by the water and we fell asleep. I don't know how long they slept. Somebody was poking us with the back of a rifle. She says, I'm not coming out of, she was under the blanket. I'm not coming out of my blanket. I don't want to see who's going to shoot me. I said, Sapka, let go of the blanket and I'm going to see who's going to shoot me. So she let go of the blanket and I got out of the blanket and I see this tall person in a strange uniform with boots up until here. I said, Sapka, I don't know who he is, but he's not a German. He says, I'm not coming out. I don't want to see him. Okay, go ahead. I'm going to see her. So I'm looking at him, and he is looking at me, and he is babbling, and I don't understand him. And I'm talking 7 languages I knew. And I spoke to him in 7 languages. He didn't know. He didn't know what I was saying. Then the tag, fell out, and on the tag he had a little tiny mezuzah, so little. I said, Sapka, there is another Jew here. At that point, Sapka and I thought we were the only 2 Jews left alive in all of Germany. And she says, but who is he? I says, I don't know. She says, I'm not coming out of the blanket. Okay. So, but I want that mezuzah. I want to kiss it. I want to, and I'm reaching, and he is there, and I'm there. And he's coming down to me. He's helping me up, and he's taking the tag, and he is putting it in my hand. And I'm taking this, and then I'm kissing it. And I look up to God. I said, thank you, God, for watching over us. The first time I spoke to God since I saw those 2 little children murdered. I never spoke to him again after that. I didn't want to burden him with my problem because he had such a big problem. I knew that he had to take care of so many people, and I didn't want to burden him with my problems, so I never asked him to help me or anybody else. But this man showed me that there is God. So I looked at the mezuzah and I looked up to God. Thank you, God, for watching over us. And Sapka opened her eyes, And on the March of the Living, on the March of the Death, the Death March, we always talked about food because that was survival. And Sapka says, and we always said, I said, Sapka, what is your favorite food? She says, scrambled eggs. I said, okay. She says, what is yours? I said, Sapka, I only want to have a small loaf of bread all to myself, so I don't have to share it with 10 people. So she says, okay, so ask it. So she says, I want to have scrambled eggs. So the soldier says, okay, what do you? I says, I just want to have a small loaf. Okay, you should have seen these people. They were gathering all these little debris, and they were making little fires, scrambling in their helmets for her. That's okay. You can walk normal. Yeah, it's okay. She's a flight attendant. She's going on her job. And so she says, oh my God, they scrambled eggs in the helmet and little. We couldn't make a big fire because the snipers would have found us and killed us. See, this was a group of soldiers that were separated from General Patton's brigade, and they were stuck in the forest to fight the snipers. Patton and the brigade were already in Berlin, but they were stuck here. And by fighting the snipers, they found 2 little snipers, us. So they took care of us. But now they have to think about protecting us from the snipers. So they fed us. They had a German-speaking soldier, so I was able to communicate with him. And he says, who are you hiding from? And why do you look like this? So I tried to explain. Who made you look like this? God knows we didn't look human. I weighed about 30, 40 pounds. I had no hair. I had one piece of clothing on my body that I wore for a year. I had no shoes. My feet were bleeding. And we didn't look like people. And they couldn't, why do you look like this? I says, well, the Nazis made us look like this. And he says, the Nazis made you look like that. How did they do that? I says, well, they didn't give us food, they didn't give us anything, and they treated us like we were nothings. And so he says, well, you'll be somethings. He says, what would you like to eat? Unbelievable. Somebody is giving us a choice. They made scrambled eggs. They didn't have any bread, but they had these boxes with a lot of crackers in it. I was happy with the crackers. So I had these boxes with crackers. Sapka had her scrambled eggs. They gave us clean shirts, so we went back to our brook and we buried in the sand, the skulls, and we put on clean shirts and we washed our bodies in the water. And when we came back, they had 2 Red Cross vans equipped with white pillows and blankets, and they were Red Cross trucks, and there were one for me and one for Sapka. No sharing with other people. It was like we didn't know that it was for us, so we sat on the floor for a while. And Sapka says, I think we ought to sit on a bed. I says, I am afraid to sit on a bed. She says, don't be afraid, let's sit on a bed. So we sat on a bed and she hugged me and she says, we will never come off this bed. I says, okay. So she says, should we celebrate? I says, Sapka, we don't know what to celebrate. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, She says, well, what do we do? I says, well, we can't do anything. Let's just go to sleep. And let's get up in the morning and hope that we are going to be free. She says, okay. So we said good night and we went to sleep. I got up this morning, but she didn't. She died in her sleep. She had typhus. See, she had typhus for a while, but she didn't want me to worry, so she never said. She was already sick. She was always very careful not to go too close to me, and I didn't know why. But now she was sleeping. I didn't think she was dead. I just thought she was tired. And the doctor came in to check on us to see how we were, to get ready to leave. And he said to me, we have to leave because the snipers are closing in. I says, would you please help her wake up because she is so tired she can't wake up by herself. And he gave her an injection and he's not waking her up. I said, don't let her sleep so long. Wake her up now. He says, I can't wake her up. She is sleeping in a very beautiful place. And she is no longer sick, and she is no longer hungry. And she knows that you are okay. And so we tell us where you want us to bury her, because we really have to leave. I says, bury her. No, she's going with us. I just could not let her, let this happen. I was thinking, could I have done something to help her live a little bit longer? I couldn't. They said, no, we have to bury her. Tell us where, and we will come back after the war. This was almost middle of the war. After the war, we will come back. We will take her body to a real cemetery. Okay, so we went back. I want her to be buried by the little river that you found us. So we took her back to the little river, and we buried her there. And we left a marker to find her after the war and take her to a real cemetery. And I left, she had a white blanket through the whole march of the death, And we threw it away when we found the soldiers, but I went and I found the blanket. And I wrapped her body up in the blanket and I put her in the ground. And I said, we will come back, right? You promise we will come back for her? Yes, we will. So they left me in a field hospital with the wounded soldiers, and they went on to meet Patton in Berlin. And I was in the hospital with the wounded soldiers. Then I don't know what was wrong with me, but they cured me. They treated me in the hospital. The whole time the soldiers were fighting in Berlin. And then after the war, they came back. They came back in the hospital. They made sure that I'm okay. We went back to the water, but we couldn't find Sapka. The mountain was so destroyed from fighting that we couldn't find anything that was buried in there. But I says, well, let's find something that belonged to her. But we couldn't find anything. So we took part of the stones that she was laying on, and we buried her in a real cemetery. All the soldiers were buried, that were falling, they fell in the war. And they kept me there until they made sure I'm okay. And then there was a displaced person camp across the border. I was near the Austrian border. And across was Salzburg, Austria. And there was a camp in Salzburg of, people that were found after the war. So they put me in there. They were children my age that were waiting to go to Sweden. All those children, there were 40 children waiting to go to Sweden to be adopted there. We all had to be 13 and a half and 14 years old. So we were there about 60 children the same age. And I was with them in this camp waiting to go to Sweden. And while I was waiting, a letter came from the Bronx, New York, from a man with the same last name as mine. And the letter says, "My name is Nathan Seigelstein, and I understand that you have a Holocaust survivor by the same name. Please find her and ask her if she would like to come to a free country, to real family." I didn't know. They didn't know if I was family. I didn't know if they were family, but they called me family. And I screamed so loud that they could have heard me all the way to the Bronx. And I says, "Yes, I want to come to a real family, to real people." And so I gave up my spot to another child to go to Sweden. And I waited 2 years in this camp in Austria to be processed to go to the United States.
What was the name of the camp?
I don't know, but it was in Salzburg.
A DP camp?
I forget the name.
But it was a DP camp?
Yeah, it was a displaced person camp. It was free. It was a free camp. We were all free. We were liberated. The soldiers, the American soldiers were taking care of us. But this was already, the war was ended. But going back to the hospital, before I went to the camp, Patton came to the hospital to visit the soldiers. And he saw me. I was the only victim there. And he said he wanted to know who I was. But we couldn't communicate because he didn't speak my language, I didn't speak his. And he wanted to know who I am. General Patton came to the hospital to visit the soldiers, and I was still there. I didn't go to the camp yet. But I was already okay. They already checked me out, and I wasn't sick. And I was scheduled to go to join the children to go to Sweden. But it didn't go yet. But meanwhile, when he came, he gave the soldiers that were in that town and in the hospital a mission to go and find the perpetrators. And he gave them an order to find perpetrators and bring them to the POW camp. And I sort of understood what he was saying or what it was about. And I said, "So, what's your problem?" I said to the soldiers. They spoke with me in German. They said, "Well, we didn't know who to get because they threw away their guns and their uniforms and they looked the same as everybody else. So we don't know who is a perpetrator and who isn't." I said, "Oh, I'll tell you how to find them. Lift up their left arm, and they have a tattoo of SS. And when you see that tattoo, that's your perpetrator." They left. They came back like 24 hours later. They had a couple of hundred of them in the POW camp. And Patton came in and he hugged me. He says, "Oh my God, we have them." I says, "Okay." He says, "Would you like to go there and kill a couple of them?" I says, "No, I don't kill." I says, "There is no room for hatred in my life." He says, "But look what they did to you." I says, "That's okay. They'll get punished by somebody else, by heaven." And so he was overwhelmed. He says, listen, I am going to be discharged after this is over, and I'm going to take you with me to the United States. And when we get there, you and I are going to write a book, make a movie, and talk to people of all ages to tell them everything that you know. I said, it's a deal. But he got killed. So he gave me 6 buttons of his uniform, which they stole in the hospital when they found out he was gone. But that's okay, because I was too young to realize that they were valuable, you know. So I let the people have it. And I was taken to the POW, to the camp with all the free people. All those people in the camp were liberated, and they were waiting to go to different places. And I was waiting with the teenagers to go to Sweden. Then a letter came from the United States from my uncle. I didn't know he was my uncle. He had no idea I was his niece, because they left when they were my age, and I was 16 at that time. So I wasn't even born when they left Europe. But they knew the family, you know, and so I acknowledged. I screamed so loud they must have heard me all the way to the Bronx. Yes, I want to come to a new family in a free country. So I gave up my spot to another child to go to Sweden, and I stayed 2 years to be processed in. You know, they had to guarantee for everything, so the city or the state has no burden. You know, they have no expense on me. They had to guarantee my education, my food, my clothing, my medical, everything. The city or the country they didn't want to take no part of it. Today, a ship comes in and people come off and they got everything. But that's okay. I'm glad I'm here.
And how did you get to America? You remember going on...
To where?
To the States, UK, you went?
Yeah, well, I stayed in that camp until I was processed. All my papers were sent from America, from there, vaccinations, all that stuff. And then we were taken to Bremerhaven. Bremerhaven was where all the ships were coming in. And my ship was waiting for me in Bremerhaven. The name of the ship was Marine Fletcher. And I boarded that ship with Jaja Gabor and her family. She was on that same ship. And she's also Hungarian, you know, they're all Hungarian. But she's such a big mouth she had. But she was on my ship. I was in first class and she was in the basement. And she wanted to change rooms with me. I says, I will change rooms with your mother, but not with you. Because her mother was down there, you know, and it was bad down there. It was hot, and you know. So, but the mother didn't want to go up there. She wanted to stay down there. So Jaja was there too. But she says, "You'll be sorry. When I get to America, I will marry the richest guy in the whole world." I said, "Yeah, right." But she did. She married Conrad Hilton.
Did you have a connection with her?
No, I never saw her again. But I know the family. You know, Tom Lantosh is related to her and his wife. And so we were, in the last days, we are all together. Yeah.
And when you met your family in America?
Oh my God, when I met my family, I was up on ship and they were down there looking up, and this was in New York, and all the lights were on, and I thought that the heavens opened up the stars for me. And I looked down and I saw my oldest brother, my father's, he looked just like my grandfather. I thought my grandfather got up from the grave and came to welcome me to America. But yeah, I saw the family. They were I found out that I had 2 aunts and 3 uncles of my father's siblings. See, my grandmother had 10 children, and 5 of them went to the United States in their teen ages, before First World War. And my father and 2 brothers stayed behind. 2 children were stillborn, so she was down to 8. So when I came to the United States, there were 5 siblings of my father here. 3 brothers and 2 sisters. 1 brother got killed in a car accident before I came, so I never met him. But 4 of them, 2 brothers and 2 sisters, lived here. 1 lived in the Bronx, 1 lived in New Jersey, 3 lived in New Jersey. 2 sisters and 1 brother lived in New Jersey. I didn't like New York because I came to New York. I says, I don't like it here. Everything is concrete. There is not a green thing in sight. So they took me to New Jersey to a reunion, and I saw green things. So I decided to stay in New Jersey.
And your family, you were close? They were very loving towards you?
So my family in New Jersey were the 2 sisters of my brother and 1 brother. So my brother had a set of twins, and they were little. They were all little, and they loved me. They loved my nails. They loved my hair. I grew them back, you know, and then my one aunt, my father's sister, she only had 1 daughter, and she was in college. She was old enough already in college. And my other one had 5 children, my other aunt. And she had 3 daughters and 2 sons. And 2 lived in Pennsylvania, and 2 lived in New Jersey, and 1 lived in New York. So they were scattered. I was visiting everybody. And as far as my diamonds, I was only able to save these 4, but I wanted to bring something for the family in New York, in the United States. So I went to a market in Austria, in Salzburg, and the Germans were selling their belongings because they needed food. And we had a lot of food. So I went, to the marketplace, and I brought food for the German people, and I got an envelope full of diamonds. But they weren't my mother's diamonds, so they were just diamonds. And I figured I have to bring something back for the family. And being that my mother, helped me save her diamonds, I will give everybody diamonds. So when I came to the United States, I called a reunion, but all the cousins, the young people. And I took this envelope and I spread it out on a table. I says, everybody take 5 diamonds. Pick them off the table. And every person take 5 diamonds. And that is from us to you. Do whatever you want with them, but they're a symbol of my life. And they saved my life through the whole time. And I hope that they will bring you happiness in your life. And you don't need to save your life. Just be happy. So I did that for my family that I never knew before.
These diamonds, you're going to, it will go from generation to generation.
Yeah, and these diamonds are to be given for my daughter.
Wow, beautiful.
Here.
Gorgeous. Oh.
must stay within the family.
What?
Yeah.
I'm touching
Just
history.
these four, yeah.
You're touching-
My husband made it into a teardrop on our 10th anniversary because he felt I was crying so much that he wants to, so he put it in a teardrop on our 10th anniversary. But the diamonds, these are to be in the family forever.
Right.
My daughter, then her daughter, then her daughter, whoever is next.
Will stay.
My baby diamonds, also somebody came back from Europe after the war, and they saw my mother's Shabbosgoite, the woman that took care on Saturday for everything. She had my baby diamonds, my baby earrings. And when she said that she's going to see me, she gave it to me. Yeah, my baby ones. So I just gave it to my daughter, and she's the only one that has girls. My son has boys. I says, whichever one has a girl first, you give them my diamonds.
That's amazing.
So I have a diamond family.
And Irene, straight after the war, you decided to do some drawings.
So what? Oh, okay. So he didn't give me everything. After I was liberated, I wanted to do something I remembered from the past. So as I said, this is my town. This is where I lived. My temple was somewhere in the airport. This is my school. This is my soccer field. I played soccer when I was this little. And this is, and here are the children in school. This is the school. This is our bathroom, the outdoor bathroom. We had an outdoor bathroom. So this is from my childhood. And then when I came to camp, and I was leaving the camp, I had to draw. This is my camp. This is where I lived since 44 until I was taken out. So I have it all written here in Hungarian, what this is. So this is where I was. We were barbed wired all around. And on every corner there was a machine gun pointing at us if we tried to semi. Here is us, the inmates, no hair, no clothes, naked, and the electric barbed wire fence. Here are the people, the train, and they're coming off the train to come in to us, but they didn't know. When they were walking in, and we were yelling to them, throw us your bread and throw us your clothes, because we didn't have any clothes. They thought we were insane, that this was an insane asylum. They didn't know what that was. We didn't know either. So, but I was standing when people were coming in. I was punished by the Blockeltester because she thought I was committing sabotage. I was stealing water for somebody that was dying. So that was, but the guard was pointing at me, and I was somewhere here standing on my knees on gravel with 2 bricks in my hand for punishment for stealing the water for a sick person. So this was my camp. So I drew all that and I wrote down where and what. Okay, he didn't give me anything. And then the picture. I don't know where he put it here. My real picture.
That's the real picture.
This is the real picture. It's the same as that. It's the same.
But this is the original.
It's the same.
That's amazing. This is the same.
See? It's the same.
The real picture.
Yeah. That's the only thing I have for my home. Couldn't find a thing. Couldn't find my father's signature on anything to prove that he was in existence. Terrible. So this is going to the museum in Nova. It's going to be an exhibit. He's got more stuff. I want to show you something that the Sonderkommando did. This is my bio. If you want to put it in there, it says, my bio, my name is Irene. I am a Holocaust survivor. I was born in a resort town in the beautiful Carpathian Mountains. At that time, Hungary. At the age of 9, I was thrown in the beginning. My name is Irene. I am a Holocaust survivor. I was born in a resort town in the beautiful Carpathian Mountains, at that time Hungary. At the age of 9, I was thrown out of the school that I loved so much because I was a Jew. And my life changed forever. Because of the Nazi hatred, I am the oldest of 6 children, and the age of 13, my whole family of 49 people were murdered in the gas chamber in Auschwitz, Birkenau. I am the only survivor in Auschwitz. I was Dr. Joseph Mengele's guinea pig for his brutal experiments. After 3 death camps, a labor camp, and a death march, I was liberated by General Patton's Third Army on June 7, 1945 and 1947. I was the lucky one to come to the U.S. I was the lucky one to come to the USA. In 1947, I was the lucky to come to the USA. At 95, I shared my experience with Steven Spielberg Survivors of the Shoah Visual History Foundation. And in 98, I was in an Academy Award-winning documentary, The Last Days.
I mean, I just want to mention, in the last days, you met with one of the German doctors, the Nazi doctors, Munch, Dr. Munch.
Yeah. In the camp, you want to put it on there? In the camp, I was selected by Dr. Joseph Mengele, which we called the most brutal doctor. He could have been a brilliant scientist, but he went evil.
This is Dr. Mengele.
I was his guinea pig in many experiments. My first experiments from him, he was trying to change the color of my eyes, but he didn't succeed. I was in many, many other experiments after. I don't know who they were because he never shared anything with us. But I know that some days he would inject me with at least 12 injections through my body. What it done for me or against me, I will never know, because he never shared anything he discovered during those times. The times at that time were bad, terrible, and painful, always painful. So that was my life in Birkenau with Mengele. I was glad to hear when he was caught that he will never do this again on any other human being.
But Irene, when you went in the film, you did the interview where you encountered one of Dr. Munch, one of the doctors that was involved in the experiments.
Yeah, when we were doing The Last Days.
And he was so unrepentive.
Yes.
He had showed no compassion, no remorse. It was
It was like
coldest person.
it had to be that way.
And he showed absolutely no sympathy for you
No.
whatsoever.
No, he was not. He was in charge in Auschwitz, in a very terrible, we experienced. He was in charge of draining blood from healthy children and send it plasma to the war to help the soldiers fight the war. But they weren't giving that blood to the German soldiers because that was Jewish blood. It was given to the Allied soldiers. But Sapka and I discovered what they were doing. They were bringing teenagers through our revier where we were being prepared for an experiment, but we never saw them come back. We always saw them go, but they never came back. But when the revolt was, they thought that somebody threw a bomb, so the whole camp was in an uproar, and everybody was running in different directions. Sapka said, "Come on, let's go find out what happened to those people that went that way and never came back." And we found them. We found a barrack with nothing in it but just chargers plugged into the wall and plugged into there. One in the arm, one behind the ear, and one in the neck, on each body, around the whole room, with plasma bottles, filling the bottles with blood, and draining the blood from the people. Dr. Munch was in charge of those people. He was selecting people for those blood transfusions. And he was sending that blood wherever the war was. They weren't giving it for German soldiers because that was Jewish blood, but they gave it for the Allied soldiers to help them fight the war. And that's when Sapka and I found this place, most of them were dead. We unplugged everything first. We destroyed the chargers in the mud because the whole barrack was full of mud. We pulled out the chargers, we stamped them into the mud so they should not be used again. And the alive people we dragged outside, left them out for somebody to rescue them, and the dead ones were dead. We couldn't do nothing for them. And that's how we found out what Dr. Munch. At the trial, he said, "I was saving lives." He was saving lives by draining his blood. And that's how he got acquitted from the Russians, because he said that he was saving lives, not. But he was in charge of that stuff.
But Irene, when you met him face to face, it must have been such a difficult encounter.
When I never got to him face to face. I got him through the movie, And yeah, when we got to Germany, we got them, all of them. We were together and we faced them. We make sure all of us recognized them. And he was like very, very casual, very pleased to tell us what he did.
But no remorse.
No, very proud of what he did. And, oh my God, our hearts were collapsing while he was being so proud of his job and of his work and of his accomplishment.
I think it's one of the most harrowing encounters.
Yes, and one woman, Renee, her sister was a victim of that thing, and she was approaching them personally, and he showed no remorse at all for her. And her sister is gone. And she had, but she found out that he was the one that had the last part with him. and he was not making her feel better.
He was very cold,
Yeah.
very...
Like that was his job, and he did that, and he was glad to do it, and he was appreciated, and he will never forget it. But we called them for a retrial. They couldn't try him again because he was too old. So he just died.
And Irene, I have to ask you, but you've gone through the most harrowing, the most unimaginable suffering that anybody could ever dream of or have, and yet you still smile and and you kept your faith and you...
That's because they never wanted me to smile again. And I am smiling because I am showing them that they did not win. We won. No matter how many of us were gone, we are still here rebuilding our country, our people, and we are now a triple of what we were when we survived. We only had 140,000 people, survivors, after the war. Look at us today. We have a country. We have people. We are everywhere. They'll never stop us.
And Irene, you've come to Israel many times. How many times have you visited Israel?
21 times. 21 times I went to Israel. And 21 times I learned something different, something else, and be proud of everything I know. And I wish I can go back now, but then maybe I will.
And you've done the March of the Living many times as well?
Yeah.
And you've taken groups to Poland?
Oh, I have taken March of the Living. I have been with 10,000 people every Yom HaShoah day in Auschwitz and Birkenau, and all over Poland whenever there is a camp, and all the camps. And then from there I went to Israel and went everywhere in Israel, Yad Vashem, and all the places where survivors are remembered or acknowledged or just living. Just be proud that they're here.
And your message is, this is your message.
Yes. And I have a family again, and I enjoy every child all over the world, and I will do anything for them. And I will prepare something very special for their future, so they should remember when I'm not here anymore what they need to do to protect everybody from such a disaster like we had. Okay, this is the people that went into the gas chamber This is going into Auschwitz-Birkenau. It says Arbeit macht frei. Okay, so all the people are going in there. Okay, when they get in there, they go into the gas chamber. These people are going to the gas chamber. This is the gas chamber. They are, before they go into the chamber itself, they're in the front. They're getting undressed, and they're putting their shoes under the benches, and their clothes, they're hanging up, and they tell them when they come out, they're going to take a shower, and when they come out, so they should find their stuff. But when they went in, they didn't take a shower. They went into that. They died. And so they never came back for their clothes or their shoes. They went to the fire, and they never came back. He is a Sonderkommando. He is one of the people that would bring in people from the chamber and put them in the oven. He insisted that he puts a child, on the mother's stomach. So here he is taking this child, putting on the mother's stomach, and then taken the mother and the child into the oven. And they let him do it because like they needed his job. They needed for him to do their job.
And Irene, one of the Zona commanders saved your life.
And I saved these. I was given this by a Polish man that took it from somebody. But I talk about this because that's really what happened. This one man in the Sonderkommando was doing, he said to the SS people, our children are born and they're put on the mother's stomach, and I want them to die that way, on the mother's stomach. So he puts them on the mother's stomach.
Can I take a picture?
When I was on my first march in 1994, I met a lot of Polish people that were working with the German soldiers in the camps during the war, but they were afraid to tell anybody. But being that they knew me as a survivor, they opened up to me. And some of them, they gave me pictures of priests that they were at that time. But that's not important for our past. But these things they gave me, I took them because they are important for our past. So they gave me, and so I have those. And I have some prayers from them and all that, but they're not important. What's important is what we have to save the future.
Your prayers are important.
Yeah.
Irene, I just want to know, Irene, if you could just take a seat. Irene, I just want to thank you. Wow.
Thank you.
Irene, there are no words. There really are no words. I'm overwhelmed. I feel so honored being in your presence. Mm-hmm. You are a diamond. You are our diamond. You really are.
Thank you so much.
It's been the most
you
unbelievable experience. Not experience, just seeing you and being with you and having my wife here as well. It's just been amazing.
What you're doing is going to be forever remembered.
Well, it's
and that is like the best thing that we can do for the future.
It's a privilege and honor to do it.
And this is the time we have to do it.
And Irene, I want to ask you, could you give a blessing to all of Am Yisrael?
Oh, yeah.
If you could.
What should I
just a blessing.
This is for the future generation. I want you to know I have been with you with thousands of teenagers around the world. I have been with you in the best and in the worst places. I have remembered the best things in my life and the worst things in my life. And you were there to help me overcome it. And I want to tell you that I will do everything that I can to help you understand a little bit of what happened then, so it should never, never happen again.
Irene, that is so amazing. There just really are no words to thank you, Nash. You are our diamond.
Yeah.
You really are.
And they are going to do it because I can see people that I have been when they were teenagers, they graduate college, and they are out of there with nothing they went in with, but meaningful stuff. They didn't go in to become an actor or an actress or a doctor or, a money maker. They went in there to stop this thing. They come out nurses and educators and teachers and, spreading the world of the worst to make it the best.
Thank you so much, Irene. And may we stream in good health and just nachas from your dear family.
Okay.
I want to thank Moran Al-Fassi from Holocaust Heroes Worldwide for introducing me to Irene and the incredible work that you do and your organization does. And Irene, you're on the board of, it's the most amazing organization. And Moran, thank you so much. I am eternally grateful to you, and I'm eternally grateful to Adam and to you.
Me too.
Thank you so much.
Irene, I'm so honored to be standing right next to you and to hug you
I love
and
you.
hold you And just thank God you made it to tell us your story. And we appreciate
Thank you so much for
you.
being
Appreciate
here and doing this. And tell Moran I did her job too.